Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today's look for this video is brought to you by the sub-zero temperatures of the United Kingdom's wintertime. I'm even sporting the double sock look, a classic in the Jessie household right now, and that's the intro for you. Today I want to talk about wedding diets, a topic that I wasn't aware was such a big and prevalent issue before, but now that I'm aware, I want to point out that this is not an announcement. I am not getting married. Mom, calm down. Yeah, so basically this topic came to my attention because I have a friend, Vicky, who is getting married next year. We were talking about wedding planning and stuff, and she said that she has so many friends that do crash dieting before their wedding. I was intrigued by it because obviously I'm not even in the ballpark to get married right now. I thought it would be more interesting for someone who is currently planning their wedding or who's going through this experience of having a wedding and getting married to give their own personal opinion. So I called Vicky and we had a very long chat about all of these things. So you can say hi to YouTube. I'll be jumping in this video between the research I've done and what I've found and my opinions, and also Vicky's opinions and how she feels about the whole situation as she's planning her wedding for next year. The first thing I noticed when I tried researching this topic was that there's not a lot of people talking about this openly on the internet, at least. What I want to achieve with this video is share the research that I found, try to understand where did dieting for weddings come from, why do we feel like we need to do it, why is it so prevalent in the wedding industry, why is there so much pressure for people to do it, and why I feel like wedding diets are a silent epidemic based on everything that I've found. When I started researching the topic, I went looking for studies to see if this was really as prevalent as we thought it would be. Right off the bat, there aren't a lot of studies on this. Surprisingly, weddings are a topic that have just not been studied very much. Most of the studies are relatively small. They may not be representative of all brides out there, but the results across the board seem to agree that this is a reality that exists out in the world. There's so few studies that we can even go through all of them very quickly. To my knowledge, from what I've found, there's only 5 studies looking at brides, 1 study looking at grooms, and one of the studies looking at the brides also looks at bridesmaids. Of the papers studying brides, the results ranged from 50 to 85% of brides saying they wanted to lose weight before the wedding. The amount of weight they wanted to lose before the wedding averaged at about 18 pounds or 8 kilos, and it was higher amongst the brides who were overweight or obese. Weddings not being a very well-researched topic, and especially seeing that heterosexual weddings were the accepted norm throughout history, it wasn't surprising that I couldn't find any studies focusing on same-sex weddings. So this is why I'll be spending the majority of this video focusing on heterosexual weddings, because that's the majority of the research that exists out there. But I would be definitely interested if there's any viewers out there who have an LGBTQ plus wedding, who can share your opinions if your experience has been at all any different than what I'm going to talk about in this video. I tried finding anyone who had an LGBTQ plus wedding who could comment on the topic, but unfortunately I didn't get anyone who reached out to me to talk about it, so I actually don't have any point of view to base this on. And searching it online, I also didn't find many articles or anything talking about the topic, so it's a good opportunity if there's any LGBTQ plus creator out there who wants to talk about it. If there's anyone out there who wants to share their experience, feel free. I'll pin your comment in the comment section below if it's interesting and informative for other people to learn from. So to understand why we look at weddings the way we do now, why we feel like we have to diet for a wedding, I think we have to go back and look at history and the role of brides in weddings from the beginning. In the times when arranged marriages were most common in the Western world, marriages symbolized the business agreement between 2 families. They didn't symbolize the union of 2 people for love. It was actually not romantic at all. The bride would literally be handed away on the wedding day, going from being the property of her father to being the property of her husband, in exchange for land, property, or goods. It's the patriarchy for me. In those days, the families would agree on the marriage between themselves without the young couple having any say on the topic whatsoever. And the bride and the groom were not allowed to see each other before the wedding at all. According to the majority of sources I found, this was because the families did not want to risk the groom seeing the bride before the wedding and actually changing his mind because he thought she wasn't beautiful enough. Which is a topic worth of unpacking on its own, but also, and I'm not really sure on the sources, so don't credit me on this, but I also found some information that the reason why at some point brides would wear veils was also to prevent the groom from seeing the bride until the very last possible moment on the wedding day, to prevent him from backing out of the agreement. Nowadays, there are still cultures around the world that have arranged marriages, but there are more instances culturally where either partner has the option to veto the other partner, or they are allowed to be involved in the wedding planning. I'm bringing this all up again because I want us to compare the role of the bride in weddings and how we look at weddings today compared to back then. It seems like before, the idea of either hiding the bride's beauty or lack thereof used to prevail. Nowadays, we consider the wedding day to be the bride's day. So how did that shift come about? According to a 2018 paper focusing on South African brides, white weddings are often viewed as the climax of heterosexual women's lives, since weddings are constructed as one of the defining moments of a girl's life in her progression towards womanhood. Within society, being married also signifies an elevation in status for the bride, more so than for the groom. Again, the patriarchy. Even if we think about the arranged marriages we were talking about before, or we think about those times when only men were allowed to work outside the house, you can definitely see how weddings are a defining moment in a woman's life, many times signifying a transition into a life of financial stability by being tied to a man and his family. Even today, women are indoctrinated to aspire to a life of marriage since we're little girls. From Disney films to rom-coms, TV series, books, Barbie dolls, it's everywhere. Whenever there's a romantic storyline happening, the wedding seems to be the climax. It's literally the story's endpoint, the literal happy ever after. Although weddings are meant to be the celebration of the union between two people who love each other, in the case of heterosexual weddings, it is normally expected for the bride to do most of the wedding planning. This is highly visible in the wedding planning industry, where the word bride is used everywhere. Even if the word bride is not explicitly present, portraying a bride by herself on the cover of a magazine sends an explicit message that the wedding is the bride's day.
You can think of my own wedding. I wasn't the one that was always like dreaming about getting married and what my wedding might look like. And some of my friends, they had their wedding dress ideas, what it might look like or what the venue might look like for many, many years. Whereas I didn't always picture that, but my future husband did. He was just like so obsessed with the idea of having like a big wedding and having it in a nice venue that was historical, and his suit has to be blue, and he's got all of these details in his head. But actually, something that bothered him quite a lot when we went to a lot of these wedding fairs is that people only would talk to me. They wouldn't talk to him. They wouldn't ask him any questions.
Wow.
And I would often try to like redirect the conversation back to him because he was the one that had the vision. I was just following his vision and kind of adding things here and there. We talk to people that are there. They've always said, "Oh, did you drag him to this wedding show?" And it's like, "No, I didn't. He dragged me to this wedding show." He's the one that booked the tickets. He's the one that insisted that we came, and they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky to have someone that wants to come to these things." It's like, why wouldn't he? Like, it's his wedding just as much as it's mine.
Exactly.
He's making just as much money as I am.
Exactly. With all of this, and especially in heterosexual weddings, the groom being completely overlooked, you can see how any non-heterosexual weddings are completely left out of the vast majority of marketing efforts in the wedding industry. Again, if anyone has had the same-sex marriage who can comment on this, I really appreciate it because I couldn't find anyone who was able to comment on it. Now, after discussing the history of how the importance of the bride in weddings came about, let's circle back to wedding diets and where they came from. According to the 1999 book Interpreting Weight, the Social Management of Fatness and Thinness, traditionally fatness was valued as a sign of health and wealth. Even until the late 1800s, fatness was valued and admired and sought after in the United States because it signified you had enough money to eat in excess, whereas thinness was synonym with hunger and poverty. Because fatness was associated with good fertility in women, this was a very highly valued trait for marriage. marriage. So, in many societies, pre wedding rituals included fattening huts, where young unmarried women are isolated, kept inactive, and fed huge amounts of food to gain weight in an attempt to be attractive as marital partners. However, cultural norms in post industrial societies, which make up the majority of countries today, have shifted to the body ideal of a very thin and toned body for women and a large and muscular body for men. In this interesting shift, I guess now you could say we have thinning huts in order to achieve the body ideal, which are supported by today's dieting culture, including gyms, dieting clinics, cosmetic and plastic surgery, amongst other practices. According to the same book in 1999, they did an analysis of wedding magazines back then, and they found that it was quite rare for weight loss to be targeted at brides and grooms directly. This suggests that the weight loss practice before weddings back then was not very much of a publicly discussed topic and was instead a private matter that was discussed behind closed doors or in a medical setting. Thus, the idea that every bride is a beautiful bride began to be constructed as a veil over all the practices and rituals that were done in order to achieve this ideal of the beautiful thin bride. In fact, the task of choosing a wedding dress seems to be most women's first encounter with wedding diet talk.
For example, when I bought my dress, I originally ordered a size 16. I'm usually between a 14 and a 16. For my wedding dress, I actually ended up having to buy a size 18 because when I tried on my size 16, it was actually really tight everywhere. The sort of fabrics in which they are built as well, because they don't have stretch, the armpits for my wedding dress, they have lace. And so I couldn't even lift my arms. I lift my arms, like say I want to do like a wave or something when I'm dancing. Like I'm just gonna rip this dress.
How early after your engagement did you start hearing those comments?
I think it wasn't right away, but it definitely started happening as we started going to wedding fairs and plan more. Because a lot of the vendors that we were meeting would talk about like dress sizes for like the bridesmaids or for the wedding dresses. And so, you know, immediately when someone says the biggest size we have is 16 and you are, in my case, I'm a size 16, but again, I probably would have had to buy like an 18. Then it becomes quite apparent that what they're kind of saying is you either have to find a different boutique or lose weight. It's not that they're going to go out of their way to buy, you know, a size 16 or 18 for you. It's very much like you either fit into these dresses or you don't. And so a lot of the conversations kind of started when I started telling some of my friends and some of my family, like, oh, I saw this dress and it was beautiful and it was in my price range, but it was 2 sizes too small. Some of these dresses that I ordered online, like I would share photos with some of my friends and my family, and like every so often, like someone, particularly like the older generations, would kind of chime in and say, oh, your belly's showing quite a lot, like you might have to start the diet like now so that you fit in it, or maybe you should restart going to the gym. And at the time, it obviously, you're planning like a day that's supposed to be really special and happy, and the last thing that kind of came to mind to me is, do I have to start losing weight so I can look happy on my wedding day?
In the last 20 years, other things have also continued to change in respect to weddings. More people live independently now, and living with your partner before getting married is now more accepted and common than it used to be. Many people have detached themselves from the religious significance of weddings, and more people now also have children before marriage. This signifies that weddings nowadays are no longer the transition from single life to couple life that used to be years ago. You would somehow expect that this meant that weddings would lose their importance and significance, but somehow the opposite seems to be true. Because nowadays in Western societies there isn't such a societal pressure and expectation of people to marry anymore, when a couple does decide to throw a wedding, it becomes a much more significant event. The commercialization and commodification of weddings is now of endless potential because weddings are now less casual and instead more elaborate and complex. From grand public proposals to bachelor and bachelorette parties or stags and hen do's, to the actual wedding day and post-wedding receptions and lavish honeymoons, the decision to get married today almost has no limits and boundaries as long as there's budget available. And I'm not even going to pretend that I'm any better because ever since I was a little girl, like most women, I've been indoctrinated to aspire to marriage. Even though I don't feel like my relationship would be any different whether we have or don't have a signed paper confirming that we are a couple. I do imagine that if any day I do decide to have anything more than a signed piece of paper, then it has to be a banging wedding. It has to be a destination wedding where I can fly my whole family and we have beautiful pictures and everything's beautiful and yada yada yada. It also means I may actually never have a wedding day because all of this luxury and fantasy is extremely expensive. Regardless, the performative nature of weddings today may help explain why brides focus so much on appearance and, by extension, weight before their wedding. Apart from weight loss, some beautifying practices before weddings include teeth whitening, tanning, hair coloring, even plastic and cosmetic surgery, and LASIK eye surgery. According to a 2008 study, the primary reasons for brides wanting to look good on their wedding day, including wanting to look good in the photos, the importance of the wedding day itself, wanting to feel beautiful on the day, and the pressure of all the guests' attention being on them. The same study also uncovered that many of the bride's concerns around appearance was also applicable to the bridesmaids. Their main reasons for focusing on their appearance included wanting to look good in the couple's wedding photos, wanting to look good for the bride, and wanting to feel good on the day and feeling the pressure that all other guests will be looking at them.
You've got a videographer oftentimes that is recording the whole wedding. You got photographer. Obviously, it depends on the wedding size, right? Like some people have 5 people, some people have 300. But all of those people are there to see you and to see your future partner. They're probably gonna take photos. And a lot of us get self-conscious when you see a friend taking a photo. What I've been trying to do, at least from my perspective, to just ease the pressure a bit, is to remind myself that like just one day, it's something that people came to see me look happy for. I don't have to lose weight to look my best. If I want to do it to be healthier and to just increase my fitness, and as part of that I lose weight, then that's great. But I don't want to do a crash diet just to fit on a dress. And then when I look back on the photos, that's all I'm going to remember. Like all the times I didn't enjoy myself just because I wanted one perfect photo. That I'm probably going to find some imperfection too. Because that's what we end up doing. Like we just allow ourselves to just see the worst in a lot of this stuff.
The media in these last 2 decades also helped immensely solidify the message that weight and appearance are extremely important in a wedding. TV shows like Bulging Brides seem to try and solidify and normalize the idea that losing weight to fit in the wedding dress is expected, while workout DVDs and slim fast commercials try to provide the practical solutions.
I mean, how many rom-coms do we have where they're about to get married and she's already on a crash diet? Like, I'm thinking about Bride Wars. Like, the whole premise of the movie, and I love Anne Hathaway and I love a good rom-com, but the whole premise of the movie is her and her best friend fall out. They both decide they're gonna get married on the same venue, on the same day, 2 different weddings. It just becomes something that absolutely explodes. But as part of her trying to sabotage her ex-best friend, who is trying to lose weight to fit into this, I think it's like a Vera Wang wedding dress or something like that, something that can be altered easily, she starts sending her chocolates. And she like sends her all these protein bars and different things that are gonna make her fat. And that's the image that we've had of weddings.
Aside from the already common wedding planning books, you can also today get wedding dietitians, wedding fitness trainers, wedding diet plans, go on a wedding fitness boot camp, and find plenty of advice for losing weight before your wedding online, which seems to be one of the first topics you will encounter when you start planning a wedding. Essentially, any crash diet or fad diet that's ever existed with the word bride, bridal, or wedding in its name is game. Okay, I can't believe it's nighttime already. Gosh. With social media now, people also have the ability to share advice on how to lose weight for weddings, which also helps propagate the idea that it's a necessity. As with most weight loss advice online, it can not only be dangerous because what works for one person might not work for another, but also because the person sharing the advice might be doing something harmful or dangerous to themselves and basically encouraging others to do the same. Plus, I'm going to bet that the majority of people sharing wedding plans or sharing their own experience of losing weight for a wedding are not registered dietitians or in the least qualified to provide nutritional advice or dieting advice to others. So take all of this with a grain of salt. As you can see, diet talk around weddings is becoming so ingrained in our culture that it comes up even if the person getting married wasn't even interested in changing their bodies in the first place for what is essentially one day out of their lives. This doesn't only affect the couple actually getting married, but also their family and the remaining guests. Anyone previously suffering or currently suffering with eating disorders will have to confront these issues and having to explain their decisions to wedding planners, boutique owners, relatives, friends, etc. And it's almost impossible to escape from it. Even I, who have what I would say quite a healthy relationship with food, I worry if one day I try to plan my own wedding and instead of being expected to focus on how happy I will be that I'll continue to share my life with my partner, I'll be expected to worry about whether or not my armpits look chubby in my dress.
Part of the way that we can help change that is just by supporting businesses and by following creators that are bringing us like a sense of comfort rather than just feeling like we have to lose weight. Like, I didn't end up going to any of these places that told me they didn't have any sizes that were mid-size because I didn't want to stress myself. I didn't want to walk in and come out sad. I just went online, found all the retailers that had my size, and then just started looking at things and ordering. And some other places actually cater for more inclusive sizes. Those are the type of businesses that I might go to with my family so they can see me try dresses on. But equally, I just unfollowed a bunch of wedding magazines. You know, if they didn't post any people that looked like me, then I just unfollowed it because I'm more than happy to follow media that portrays a lot of different kinds of people. But at the end of the day, if they have like no couples that looked like me, it made no sense to just look at those as inspiration because I'm never gonna look that way. So I just felt like it would just add like a more stressful layer to something that's already really stressful.
Let's not forget that weddings are also incredibly scripted events, from rehearsal dinners to the insanely timed schedule on the actual wedding day. An enormous deal of planning goes into trying to bring all the moving pieces into the perfectly structured day. All this planning takes months of work, lots of money, and teams of people to bring all sorts of services together. The emotional investment in weddings is sufficiently great to label them a stressful life event. Adding to this the pressure to go on a weight loss journey certainly cannot make it easy to juggle the stress involved in both planning the wedding and the ability to enjoy the actual wedding day itself.
And a lot of people say that they don't really remember their wedding.
I can imagine.
It's drinking. It's because you're so stressed trying to make sure everybody feels happy, everything's running smoothly. You know, you were trying to look your best as well. And on top of that, like a lot of people, because of the timeline of weddings, sometimes they don't even get to eat properly throughout their wedding. Like they end up eating something that's cold or munching on something else. I just think it's so important as friends and as family to just support the person that's getting married and not add layers of stress to their day and their planning by just adding things that they might have not been thinking about. Like, I thought about my weight when I started looking at dresses and I couldn't really find stuff that I liked on my size. But I didn't think about actually losing weight and actually thinking about going to the gym or potentially starting any sort of like diet until people just started bringing it up quite a lot. And then it just becomes kind of like a little intrusive thought in your head of like, to be the bride they all want me to be, like I have to lose weight. And it just adds like a more unnecessarily unhealthy layer to something that's already quite stressful.
On top of this, like we've discussed in a previous video, stress can be a catalyst for changes in weight and body appearance just by itself. This means that even without trying to change your body or appearance, the simple stressful event of planning a wedding can cause unwanted body changes. Ultimately, this video had no intention of trying to tell anyone what to do. If someone decides to change their body for any reason, lose weight for the wedding, then that's their choice and they have absolutely every right to do so. But I really just wanted to explore this topic and really focus on what I consider to be the real epidemic here, which is the cultural and social expectation that jumps from one generation to another, from one bride to another, that if you are not able to conform to a certain look on your wedding day, or if you're not able to look your absolute best you've ever looked in your entire life on your wedding day, on this once in a lifetime event, then essentially you have failed. Sadly, nowadays, looking the best you've ever looked equates normally to looking the skinniest you've ever been. And even sadlier, is that a word? The wedding industry chooses to focus on this rather than focusing on weddings as what they should be, essentially, which is the celebration of having found the right partner for you who you want to share your life with and sharing this celebration with your family and friends. But I guess that doesn't make as much money. As a solution to this, I really agree with Vicky when she says that we should put our money where our values and morals are, and supporting businesses that support you in making you feel comfortable when planning a wedding, no matter your size, your gender, your sexuality, is really how we ensure that there is a shift down the line in the culture and in the industry. Again, I'm really not planning on getting married anytime soon. I really thought this was an interesting topic. It was suggested to me. I hope I did a good job covering it. But because I haven't been through the experience, obviously there may be things I may have missed, and I will always be interested in hearing from anyone who's engaged or married who wants to share their experience in the comments. Please feel free to do so. I love learning from you and I love hearing your perspectives. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. I'll see you down there and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.